right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Frankly Speaking Live here on webcast1live.com. I'm Dave Kanyuk. Joining us today, we've got Jason Rainwater.
You outed me.
Yeah, that's right. Jason Rainwater to my right, and of course the host of Frankly Speaking Live, riding shotgun with us today. On my left is Frank Holtzhauser. Frank, how are things going?
Oh, going much better than they were last couple of weeks.
Oh, that's good. Good to see you again, Jason. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Hey, when the camera pans to me, can you see? Okay, you can't see the cat in the hat like last week, so that's good. That's a good one.
Yeah,
Anytime
2 weeks
it
ago.
went back to you, you just had this little creature over your shoulder, like, say something. Say it.
That's right. 2 weeks ago, you hosted. I was in the.
Yeah. I always say last week, like it was like, yeah, of course it was last week. Of course it was 2 weeks ago. Time flies with everything.
I know, right? Time seems to be accelerating.
I'm doing well. There's not much on the wrestling front for me to talk about.
Yeah, I haven't watched.
So-
I haven't watched in like 2 weeks'
Yeah.
time. I was too busy with E3 last week.
So you didn't see the reuniting of the what is it, the Authority, and they jumped Brock Lesnar and kicked crap out of him.
Yeah, I saw that on Raw. I was actually watching like NXT, and they did their Dusty Rhodes tribute, and you could tell they were in an empty arena, and then they panned back to what they had taped previously because they always tape like 3 or 4 episodes.
Oh, that makes sense.
So it was like, oh, he's talking to somebody, but I know there's not a crowd in the arena right now.
Well, what was kind of curious is when I think they announced Dusty Rhodes died on a Thursday, and they had SmackDown on Thursday night. I was kind of surprised they didn't show something because it's not a live show.
No, they.
But
they
I'm
tape it on
I'm
Tuesdays.
surprised they didn't show something in advance of.
Was it? I don't know if they did it, but after they probably had sent tape in. By the time,
yeah.
I'd only assume that, but yeah, nothing too much on this end. I saw a really nice concert yesterday.
Yeah,
I was
you were
telling
telling
about
us
it a little bit.
about that.
Yeah, it even got Bess on her feet dancing, and I don't know if you know my significant other, but she doesn't just dance in front of people.
Really?
It was pretty.
Most women I know will dance at the drop of the
Yeah.
hat. They got the dancing gene. I
Right.
don't know.
Bess is a throwback to like the 19th century Victorian women. Like I swear she would wear those long dresses and coattails if you let her,
Would she
because
do
that's her
boots?
life.
And the button-up collar.
Yeah, she would. She would. She'd be perfect with that as long as she had her opinion, which is
Right.
You know.
What I'd like to see come back are like the fake butt things.
yeah. The
Right.
Is it a buttress?
I don't remember what they were called.
I don't know. I don't remember what it was called at all.
What is that? A bustle.
bustle.
Thank you, Maddie. It's a bustle is what it was called.
This is why we have a producer on this show.
And them lace-up corsets where you put your foot in their back to tighten them up.
Right.
Right.
That's like when we did Elephant Man, and one of Michael's lines was that how bad corsets were for women, and he's like, but they keep coming in knowing that corsets are ruining them. I just remember that's the part where he starts freaking out about corsets in the Elephant Man, and I was like, that's an interesting line.
Could you imagine like the Victoria's Secret line of bustles?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we got a ton of stuff to cover. What a heck of a week this has been. I'm not even sure where to begin with everything that's going on. We had the TPP passed earlier this week. I wanted to read off the names of the traitors that voted for it. Alexander, Ayotte, Barrasso, Bennett, Blunt, Boozman, Burr, Cantwell,
Aaron Burr?
Capito, Carper, Cassidy, Coates, Cochran, Coons, Cornyn, Cotton, Crapo, Danes, Enzi, Ernst, Feinstein, Fisher, Flake, Gardner, Graham, Grassley, Hatch, Heitkamp, Heller, Hoven, Inhofe, Isaacson, Johnson, Kane, Kirk, Langford, McCain, McCaskill, McConnell, Moran, Murkowski, Murray, Nelson, Purdue, Portman, Reich, Roberts, Rounds, Rubio, Sass, Scott, Shaheen, Sullivan, Thune, Tillis, Toomey, Vitter, Warner, Wicker, and Wyden. All 60 of these people basically had a treasonous vote They voted to completely end United States sovereignty. Corporations now have control over what our laws are.
Corporations are people, Dave.
Well, the fact of the matter is they voted to give up their authority as elected officials, as representatives of the public, in order to give their power to the office of the president.
What an eclectic group that voted yes. You know, what a strange bipartisan vote that took place. And what's strange about it is the 40 that I side with on this vote are not of the party that I affiliate myself.
Well, it just goes to show you that everything that we've said about the two-party system being a complete fraud has been accurate. They're all in on it. I mean, there's no way around it. They're all in on this destruction of the American Republic. So that's, just Katie barred the door. Get ready for it. The big news today, of course, is the gay marriage vote in the Supreme Court. Jason, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, of course I have thoughts. When people ask, I've mentioned this on the show before. When people ask me
That's
about
why you're on
my
the show,
opinion
'cause you got
on
thoughts.
gay marriage, I say yes, I have one. You know, so it was, but you know, governmentally, and a lover of liberty that I am, government has no business on the social order of anybody. They're there to regulate commerce and punish criminals and what's so forth. On a religious moral standpoint, I don't agree with it, but that's for my personal agency. I don't think that type of lifestyle works for me.
Right.
That's all I can really say at this point towards it. I mean, on a religious view of it, it's just, like I said, it's for my personal belief and agency that I just don't agree with that lifestyle. The government thought that I have about it, like I said, government shouldn't even be involved. And when and if I marry the woman that I love, the hardest part about it for me that's going to happen is that I have to walk into a government office and say, can I please have a marriage license so I have your blessing to marry her? That's going to be the worst part of it. And I think no one should ever have to walk that ridiculous walk in and be like, okay, here, sign a piece of paper here.
Walk of submission.
Give it, have a blood test. The only reason that they regulate marriage in the first place is to take taxes from you. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's just, and I think it's a point made that the Supreme Court did this on a Friday, because this is typically take out the trash day when it comes to news stories, because it's going to fester over the weekend and people are going to forget it by Monday. You know, and they look at the vote that was 5-4 and they vilify the 4 people that voted against it. And I said, would name me a Supreme Court decision that had everlasting effect, that would be remembered for years down the road, that was not 5-4.
Sure.
Sure. It's politically driven to be 5-4. The only time that the Supreme Court ever agrees unanimously on the decisions when it's such a minor case note, where they're like, oh yeah, well that makes sense, and then they write their huge opinion on it. And this one, it was typical of a 5-4 decision. There was the majority opinion where it was very poetic and very driven forward to bring a lot of cheer.
Feel-goodery.
It was.
Yes.
And then the dissenting opinion was written as if, you know, there's a madman with a feather pen going crazy with it. I go, there was reason why. If anyone thinks that these opinions are just the opinions of the justices, they really need to look back at how politicized the Supreme Court is now.
Frank, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, see, you're right. It's social engineering, or the Supreme Court's looking at the social landscape. But do you guys think that government has, I mean, you talked about government shouldn't be in marriage, but do you think government has a vested interest should have a vested interest in families and marriage, in that they wouldn't be able to sustain their self without a population? So say, for example, when you've got a state that's got roughly 600,000 people in the whole state, like Wyoming, South Dakota, et cetera, they wouldn't want abortion in their state because they need a populace. They need a tax base.
I don't think that's what the aim is, though. I don't think they couldn't care less. I mean, otherwise they wouldn't be, allowing abortion to continue on. They push this depopulation agenda. Plus, the population of the country that's actually homosexual is minute. Really, I mean, what is it?
I mean,
like
and-
600,000 couples are actually
And
homosexually
constitutionally,
married
the
right now?
federal government can't tell the states, you have to do this. They can't command the states to do so. The states can say, okay, that's great on you, but we make our decisions. But that's what originally, now because we're so ingrained into a centralized form of government, that the states have to, because they rely on federal money to constantly come into
That's key.
to feed them into their
That's
government
key.
needs.
Well, you're the guy that walks around with a copy of the Constitution, right?
Yeah.
Where is it in the Constitution that gives a heterosexual couple the right to marry?
There is none.
It's not
There's
there.
none.
And the Constitution says that any power that's not laid out in the Constitution for the federal government to mandate is therefore is reserved for the states.
And
So
that's
this
what-
is a states' rights issue.
Exactly, and that's why it's talked about me going into an office and having to fill out a marriage license is insulting to me, because it's not necessary. It's to feed my income tax.
So this was all based on Harry Blackmun in the 1960s Equal Protection Clause, which guaranteed a equality of opportunity, but that somehow morphed into equality of results. So it was to address the grievances of the blacks of slavery, and it's somehow been hijacked and stolen to mean anything.
Well, here's where I think the real danger of this ruling lies. I mean, people are free to do what they want, and I'm fine with that. I don't have anything against the many gay friends that I have. That's your decision. Go do what you want. Live your life in peace. You shouldn't be persecuted. You shouldn't be ostracized. You should be free to do what you please, really. And then if that's something that God looks down upon, then that's between you and God. But my problem with this ruling is because this is going to open up Pandora's box. This is going to open up Pandora's box, and I guarantee you, within the next year, maybe year and a half, 2 years at the latest, we're going to see a challenge. It's going to go from the bakeries now to the churches, and we're going to see a challenge in the court system when a gay couple is refused marriage by a pastor or by a priest. Then they're going to say that it's a civil rights violation and that the church has no right to deny them marriage because it's their constitutional right to get married.
No.
Yes, we are. We are going to see that.
This
because
is just about I need to visit my lover in the hospital.
And I'm no, seriously, I'm fine with that. If you have a couple that's been together like that and one of them is sick, then yeah, they should be able to get visitation rights. I'm fine with that. But like I said, my problem with this ruling is what the deeper meaning behind the ruling is, and that is the abolition of religious thought. That's the abolition of basically God in this country and turning religion into hate speech in the eyes of the government. So what you're going to see after these challenges come through, you're going to see the courts rule that, well, if your church is receiving tax breaks through 501c3, then you have to honor gay marriage. And that's the decision we're going to see. I'm saying 2 years tops, we're going to see that decision.
This is why it's called progressivism for a reason.
It's regressivism.
Well, but it's the idea that they're just as patient as or they have the same goal in mind as liberals. They're just willing to be a little bit more patient in getting there.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, why are we celebrating what was a discriminatory regulation, as it was, or rule or law that was brought forth by the people who now pretend to champion this group? I mean, if you look back in history, the most discriminatory party in this nation has always been Democrats. And somehow they can always turn the argument back over to where, like, well, no, we're protecting equal rights, we're protecting civil rights, we're protecting the right of a woman, we're protecting the right of a gay couple, we're protecting the right of animals, whatever. I go, quite honestly, if anyone wanted the freedom to be able to marry who they want without government restriction, they shouldn't be supporting or applauding a government that basically just said, yeah, our bad. We've been doing this for like 50, 60 years now. You can go ahead and go do it. Why are they celebrating the permission
because
to be able to be married?
they think that they've won a major victory. Basically, their lifestyle has been legitimized in the eyes of the government. We'll get back to this issue after After the break, we'll cover some more of this, and then we'll get on to other things like the Confederate flag controversy. Stay tuned. You're watching Frankly Speaking Live here on webcast1live.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
If you choose to obey the power of sin, it leads to death. If you choose to obey obedience, it leads to righteousness.
Forgiveness is just the beginning of life in Christ. God wants us to live for Him now.
And because of Jesus Christ, the gospel was preached, and you and I are blessed today because of Abraham. Did you know that? We're blessed.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
Hi, I'm J. Michael McCoy, and about 20 years ago, I went to a used car salesman by the name of John Hewitt. He had a little shop over there on North 2nd Avenue called John's Auto Sales, and I bought a car. I found that experience to be one that I had never had before from a used car salesman. He was honest, he was dependable, he had integrity, and he did what he said he was going to do. Well, over the years, between my kids and grandkids, I purchased 7 vehicles from John's Auto Sales. And last month, I asked him to be a sponsor. I can tell you about their huge selection. I can tell you about their years of experience. I can tell you about their honest integrity. But all I really need to tell you is that I bought 7 cars, and you can trust them. John's Auto Sales, 5435 2nd Avenue, Des Moines.
You need a good ride when you hit the trail. Trust the man with the cars, and he goes by the name of Big John. Big John. Big John.
The only way we come to know the Saviorship of Jesus Christ is by bowing and acknowledging that He is Lord and King over all the earth.
Jesus Christ died on a cross, paid the penalty for our sin, and by repenting of our sin and accepting Him by faith, what He did for us, we are forgiven.
Salvation is not a combination of faith and works. Salvation is by faith alone in God.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking Live here on webcast1live.com. This is Dave Kanyuk. I've got Jason Rainwater and Frank Holzhauser sitting in. If you want to join in, give us a call. The phone number here is 244-0077. If you're outside of Des Moines, you can call us at 515-244-0077. So we're, of course, talking about the Supreme Court decision on gay marriage today. In his dissenting opinion, Chief Justice John Roberts wrote, "This court is not a legislator. Whether same-sex marriage is a good idea should be of no concern to us. If you are among the many Americans of whatever sexual orientation who favor expanding same-sex marriage, by all means celebrate today's decision," Roberts said, "but do not celebrate the Constitution. It had nothing to do with it."
Yeah, but enjoy your subsidies in healthcare.
Yeah, this it's just a key phrase. This court is not a legislator. Where was John Roberts yesterday when he was basically making law off the bench in the upholding of the Obamacare subsidies for the exchanges there? And what did he wrote? He said, "The court holds that when the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act says exchange established by the state, it means exchange established by the state or the federal government." This is, of course, quite absurd, and the court's 21 pages of explanation make it less so. This is what Scalia wrote in his dissent from that decision yesterday. And I can't find what John Roberts wrote, but, here we go. Congress passed the Affordable Care Act to improve health insurance markets, not to destroy them, Roberts said yesterday of the Supreme Court decision on the subsidies for Obamacare. "If at all possible, we must interpret the act in a way that is consistent with the former and avoids the latter. In this instance, the context and structure of the act compel us to depart from what would otherwise be the most natural reading of the pertinent statutory phrase, i.e., reading verbatim what the actual words say. And then Scalia responded that the court holds that when the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act says exchange is established by the state, it means exchange is established by the state or the federal government. And that is, of course, quite absurd. And the court's 21 pages of explanation make it no less so. Scalia also added that words no longer have meaning if an exchange that is not established by a state is established by the state. It is hard to come up with a clearer way to limit tax credits to state exchanges than to use the words established by the state. And it is hard to come up with a reason to include the words by the state other than the purpose of limiting credits to state exchanges. So what is with Roberts' flip-flopping here? Is he bipolar or just absurd?
He's balking at the argument. He did it the first time that Obamacare came before the Supreme Court. You know, it's not that. Let me put my words right here. He's not consistent. Yeah, he's not consistent. He's not standing by principle. He's realizing that this, quite honestly, Obamacare is unconstitutional at all levels of law. It truly is. It's demanding that the states follow a federal regulation where they have to put forth their own money and they're putting into their own debt. And if you look at it in a monetary way, that's what it is. And by subsidizing health care, you're asking the 60 to 70% of people who have a healthy lifestyle, who don't regularly need to go to a doctor, who don't regularly need medication, to pay for the 30 to 40% that either moderately go to the doctor, are on some type of medication, and also helping the 5 to 10% who take heavy doses of medication and visit the doctor more than once on a monthly basis. My payment into healthcare is not paying towards my healthcare; it's paying towards Frank's healthcare. Not to pick on you, Frank, or anything like that.
Pick on me.
But you know what I'm saying? It's because you're an older gentleman. That's right. What I'm paying. I am subsidizing Frank's healthcare. So my healthcare is going to be paid by my daughter and my daughter's children following right after her. I go, that's what's unconstitutional about it, is because it's a money Ponzi scheme in a way where, you know, the person who is actually trying to get healthcare for themselves is not paying for their own. They're paying for everyone else that's following after them.
But I guess the issue that I have, what is with John Roberts? How can he make law on one decision, but then say, well, it's not okay to make law on another decision? How can he flip-flop like that? Is he compromised?
Yeah. It's a strange thing where the Supreme Court is looking at its own poll numbers.
And they really, of course,
that's really
they shouldn't
they shouldn't be. They're supposed to be impartial and interpreting the Constitution, interpreting law against the Constitution.
Well,
but that's it.
As I was trying to suggest to some guests of Red Eye last night on the radio, and they seemed to think I was rambling. But
I think I was just doing that. So.
I said, well, you got to remember, we're talking about John four-dimensional chess player Roberts.
Who came up with that argument that he was?
I want to say it could have been Ann Coulter, but I'm not sure.
Geez. Miss Ann Coulter.
But she wasn't
radiation's good for you. The people of Fukushima should be happy.
But Coulter. She wasn't the only one. They were making this argument that Roberts is so smarter than everybody else that he was thinking ahead, that he was going to take the pressure off the court by putting it in the Republicans' lap to vote for Romney. But
it makes sense that argument would come from Ann Coulter, who's one of the pound-for-pound stupidest people that is walking around on the planet.
Here's the thought that I had. Yeah, this is what you get when you sell your soul to Satan for political office. You know, you had somebody like Sheila Jackson Lee get up on the floor of the Congress and say basically that food, education, healthcare, and housing are civil rights. So when you start giving out gifts to get voted in office, those gifts aren't easily walked back.
Sure.
You've been given this health care, so now you got a whole bunch of new people on the government dole, and now that Republican candidates are even starting to talk, well, what are we going to replace it with?
Nothing. They're
not saying we're going to scrap it. They're saying, how are we going to modify? Tony Blankley, who was he was a British chap who was like Newt Gingrich's spokesman or something, said, when they go down the wave of socialized medicine as they did in England, there's no distinction between the parties. It's who just best can manage the decay.
Well, it's also population size. The reason that socialized healthcare can work in places like Taiwan and work in places like Switzerland is because their population is minimized to a point where it's manageable. You have enough people in the healthcare professional jobs that they can handle that amount of patient in care and out care. You get towards the size of England, you get towards the size of Canada, you get towards the size of us. We can't control that. We have to create, and like in England, they have to create a gatekeeper system. Basically, a doctor telling you, well, I don't think you're sick enough, go home. That's why they have people on waiting list for decades, because they have to do it that way. There's not enough resource or infrastructure for them to continue on a socialized healthcare, but because it's such a hot button issue where everybody's like, oh, it's a right. It's a right that I get what I want. And what was so wrong with our healthcare system before? Guess what? I didn't have to go through a gatekeeper if I wanted to see a cardiologist. I didn't have to go through a gatekeeper if I wanted to go to a podiatrist to check for a bunion or an ingrown toenail.
Well,
you know, what was so wrong with that? Because there was 3 to 4 million people that didn't have health care. Well, I'm sorry that 3 to 4 million people were underneath the poverty line, and we were still providing them with free health care. Just because they weren't with an insurance program, that's what the main thing is.
It's not about actually providing health care. It's about controlling every aspect of your life. And it's also, in a indirect way, deciding who lives and who dies. If you don't have views that conform with the government standard of thought, if you're a thought criminal, then you're not going to receive treatment, basically. If you're a political enemy, you're not going to receive treatment. And that's really what it's all about. In a story today, the White House says that the White House wants to teach your doctor to teach you about global warming. How is it the responsibility of a healthcare professional to start spouting off this global warming religion to people?
I love that they went back to global warming.
The liberals are going to get what they want. Can you say VA? Can you say the Veterans Administration?
Well, as I said on the show back when the VA scandal broke, the VA was a microcosm. It was a test bed of what they want to do for everybody with Obamacare, denying people health.
If you work all your life, now my uncle isn't working anymore, and he had 2 hip transplants here recently, or I shouldn't say transplants, but 2 hip replacements. If you're 90 years old and you worked all your life, you should have your hip replacements whether you need them or not. It shouldn't be left to a cost-benefit analysis.
Larry Klayman of Freedom Watch, getting back over to John Roberts. Larry Klayman of Freedom Watch says that all 6 of the Supreme Court justices that voted for this tax subsidy thing need to be impeached. He says all 6 of them need to go. All 6 are guilty of abandoning the rule of law, said the longtime government watchdog. In its place, they have substituted the advancement of their own political agendas. These 6 justices have violated their own long-established rules of interpretation for applying statutes to instead advance their own political objectives or burnish their public persona, Klayman said in reaction to the decision. Such personal goals corrode the role of the courts. The justices abandon the rule of law and have become merely a political focus group. As Justice Antonin Scalia makes clear in his dissent, the 6 justices actually rewrote the Affordable Care Act instead of interpreting it. Scalia wrote that the legacy of the Roberts Court will be forever the discouraging truth that the Supreme Court of the United States favors some laws over others and is prepared to do whatever it takes to uphold and assist its favorites. Klayman also he talks about his concerns about John Roberts. Klayman has become gravely concerned about the independence of the Supreme Court following a whistleblower's allegations that private information about Chief Justice John Roberts was harvested illegally by the U.S. government. Although it is illegal for the Central Intelligence Agency to operate within the domestic United States, a contractor whose company was hired to perform the harvesting for the CIA has come forward to blow the whistle. That contractor, identified in an earlier article as Dennis Montgomery, claims to have proof that the CIA harvested personal and private information about Roberts and other federal judges and may be intimidating the Supreme Court with the threat of leaking personally damaging information. So what do you guys think about that? For John Roberts, who in the months leading up to the original Obamacare decision said that he was against it and then flip-flopped on the night prior to the decision being made, and then he does this flip-flop last night and today. I mean, is that what's going on? Is he being blackmailed, basically? Or is it just that he's a socialist, progressive person?
Yeah, he's establishment Republican, and I look at the story.
I wouldn't even classify him as that.
I mean, I look at the story, and when I say establishment Republican, we're talking social engineered Republican base.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's what I mean by it. And if politics are being played where that is take place, it wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me in the least bit. Anybody can be intimidated, regardless what position you're in.
Yeah, but how did you like the President of the United States signaling the way he thought the Supreme Court ought to rule the last couple of weeks, saying that basically if they don't rule the way he thinks they should, they're not flying straight.
Yeah, Roosevelt did that argument too when he tried to stack the Supreme Court. So I mean, it's not unheard of, but it's for him to go out and basically tell what is supposed to be an impartial court that is only there to strictly enforce constitutional standards. You need to rule this way, or I'm going to take out my pen stand over you as dictator again.
Exactly. My problem is that we no longer have a rule of laws. We no longer have a word of laws by written word. We have rules of loose interpretation and edicts. But we're coming up on the second half here. This is Frankly Speaking Live, webcast1live.com. Come back. We're going to get into the Confederate flag controversy. You're not going to want to miss it. This is Frankly Speaking Live. Stay tuned.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Hobbs.
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed. Fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money-back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fix them problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing. We have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're going to make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money back guarantee on what we do. What type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
We're coming back here, Frankly Speaking, live here on webcast1live.com. This is Dave Kanyuk, joined by Jason Rainwater and, of course, Frank Holtzhauser. Frank, you had one more point that you wanted to make on the gay marriage issue.
I was just going to opine that wonder why a certain member of the Supreme Court didn't recuse herself, because I think it's readily apparent that a certain member of the Supreme Court is gay.
Sure. Elena Kagan.
So I'm wondering why she was even able to sit in on the session.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. She should not have been allowed to make a ruling, because how could she be unbiased in that ruling? I mean, this is totally. Yeah, the words can't describe. I mean, I just feel like
that's why it's an opine, because you can't argue against
exactly.
it.
I just feel like we're completely off the reservation this week. I feel like Katie barred the door. It's all coming. It's all coming. But I wanted to move on and get into the Confederate flag controversy. The Confederate flag, which was mostly just a relic for the Old South and hillbilly hick types.
I don't want to be that cool guy that's on Facebook that like really points out to people that the Confederate flag's not the Confederate flag, but can I do that right now?
Yeah, sure, go ahead. Right. It's the battle flag of the Army.
It's the battle flag of the Army of Northern Virginia. The Confederate flag, if we want to get into the Confederate flag, was actually a flag that was red and blue with a white square in the left-hand corner. It had the stars of all the Confederate states. It basically looked like the flag of Texas, just with more stars on it. So should I have Texas dump their flag because they have remnants of an old Southern Confederacy flag? Do I request all Southern states to change their flag because all Southern states kept their flag while members of the Confederate states? Like, where does the controversy end? I suppose.
Maybe we need to have a roll call of Southern governors apologizing for the Confederacy.
Well, let me offer you this food for thought. If I've got cancer and I break out with a cancerous lesion on my arm, I can treat that lesion on my arm with the topical salve, but I'm totally ignoring the root cause of what's causing that. So immediately when liberals jump on guns, jump on the Confederate flag, they're jumping at the symptom. Mm-hmm. What is the root reason a human being would go into a church and shoot 9 other human beings despite their color? Just the fact that he's going to go in and shoot 9 other human beings, find out why that is, and address that instead of trying to put topical salve on an issue by going after guns or the Confederate flag.
Well, they're using the Confederate flag as the symbol of what they call racism and hate and everything, so they're trying to codify that into a symbol and eliminate that and make themselves feel better. So you're absolutely right.
So when they take down the flag, racism's over?
No.
Until the next argument that comes up about it.
They will maybe claim that racial tensions are eased, but you know these types. Racism will never be over. If we all, we're getting along tomorrow, if we were all holding hands across America, these people would say, well, somebody's holding the hand a little bit too tight. That's racism. Racism can't die for these people who cry racism and everything because they'd be out of business.
Because they merchant in it. They merchandise in it. So Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson won't let racism die because they're profiteering off of it.
Exactly. And this Dylan Ralph kid, I mean, you want to tie in the Confederate flag to him because he posed with the Confederate flag in a few pictures, which, by the way, who took the pictures of this guy? How come nobody's asking these questions? Who took the pictures?
Fit the
How come
narrative,
nobody
Dave?
stepped forward? Exactly. It doesn't fit the narrative.
I mean,
this whole thing stinks to high heaven. And you remember that? Do you remember the FBI handout before he was captured? And which was, by the way, if you've seen the video of that capture, it's the most calm police interaction I've ever seen. We got the 2 people out in New York. One of them they just shot dead a few moments ago. They're going crazy for that. They go crazy for a woman who takes a wrong turn in Washington, D.C. and is armed with only a child. They shoot her dead. And the sycophants in Congress applaud the Capitol Police for murdering her. But this guy, they just roll up to him. They don't even have guns drawn or anything. They just roll up to him, nonchalantly take him into custody. It's like, what is this all about? But that handout, before they captured him, the handout that they presented to the media, showing him from the surveillance camera of the church going in, supposedly of that night. If you look at the date stamp of that video, the date stamp says 7/6/2015. So it's either July 6, 2015 in the future, or it was in a European model, which I think it was. It's the 7th of June, 2015, which was days prior to when he actually went in and shot it. So what's going on with that?
But let me ask you guys a question. Megyn Kelly had on this week the
stupidest person.
the woman who was supposedly the guy in Oklahoma was the second victim he was trying to behead. And I didn't hear no outcry from the media to get rid of knives. We can't offend the Muslims by talking about, their beheading techniques or whatever that they want to utilize for the infidel. But immediately, as soon as there's something racial, we pound right immediately on the Confederate flag.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned there's no call for banning knives. Actually, in Great Britain, where gun control,
it's amazing in Great Britain the time I lived there.
British police call on nation to save a life, surrender your knife, as knife violence continues. So they've got bins now on the streets where you can just toss in your knife, like the gun surrender program.
You just have to have an open head wound to not realize when you ban guns or you have some form of hyper gun control, you are raising crime rates to the stratosphere. And that's what happened in England. I wouldn't go into London after 9 o'clock. Mm-hmm. Because the crime rate there after it went dark jumped, almost tripled by the time from sundown to sun up, because there's no control.
There's no control. You don't have a moral society.
There is no difference
out of everything.
There's no difference if I'm just going to use this as an example. So if anybody out there goes, "Oh my gosh, he wants to shoot somebody," it's not that. It's no different if I come up to you and I shoot you dead than if I come up with a hatchet and chop you dead. There's not. I've used bodily harm against you with some form of weapon. Well, I could beat you to death with my fists, and that's a deadly weapon. I'm sorry, but just because you ban guns doesn't mean people won't find a new way to hurt somebody.
They will follow the British model, though, once they do ban guns, and then they will start banning knives and any type of instruments that could be used as an offensive weapon, because they don't want people to have the right of self-defense. But let's get back over to the Confederate flag issue. It's very interesting. When the shooting occurred, it started off as a big push for more gun control. Now, that's kind of going beyond underneath the scenes right now. But a few days after that push, you had Obama coming out immediately and saying that, it's the fault of guns. I don't have the quote verbatim, but what he said. But he basically laid the groundwork for an executive order that will be upcoming after the next event, which will be provocateured by the government.
His comments basically argued this is the fault of guns, racism, and Southern heritage.
Right.
That's what he basically laid out.
Okay, so that morphed into this Confederate flag controversy, and now we've got banning of the Confederate flag on every type of website available. Amazon, everybody... even Apple is pulling out video games.
Well, that's what we were talking about.
Historic war games that had the Confederate flag image.
I have no problem with South Carolina removing that flag as the symbol of their state. I don't have a problem with that. It's just a flag towards the end of it. If you want to look at it as a symbol as racism, that is your personal choice. But if someone flies the Confederate flag, or what would have been considered a symbol of slavery, maybe to them it doesn't represent that.
Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. You look at the swastika. In Nazi Germany, it meant, persecution of Jews. It meant a socialist form of government. In Native American culture, I don't remember the exact tribe, that exact same symbol is a symbol of peace. It's the exact same. It means to bond with your neighbor. I go, can we look at the symbols as just being symbols, and not something where somebody portrays it and you're like, oh my God, you're immediately a racist.
Well,
you don't know.
Symbols do have power, and the Nazis actually adopted that from, I believe, Hindus actually used that as part of their as something that part of their thing there. But it was a symbol for luck, basically, for years and years and years. Frank, you've got a point.
Well, I'd like to see some real journalists in this country ask Dianne Feinstein, Jim Webb, and Barack Obama. Dianne Feinstein was quoted one time as saying, yes, she carries a gun. And if anybody comes after her, she's going to take 2 or 3 people with her. Jim Webb was caught, his bodyguard or his associate was caught walking into the Capitol building with Jim Webb's gun in his briefcase. And you got Barack Obama's kids who are guarded by armed protection, and his lives are guarded by armed protection, but everybody else shouldn't be.
Oh, guns are fine in the right hands.
Last Sunday, Karl Rove, the Dark Lord himself, got up on Fox News and said that the only way to stop gun-related violence was to repeal the Second Amendment.
And
so
then,
we got to that point.
If anybody wants to Google a guy named, I think he was a reporter, journalist, Carl Rowan, R-O-W-A-N. He was a writer, something in D.C., and he was staunchly anti-gun. But one night, Carl had to shoot an intruder in his home.
Oh, sure.
So, gosh, his weapon come in handy that he happened to have, but everybody else shouldn't have one.
The same thing happened with Leonard Boswell
years
ago?
Could have, but I don't remember that.
Well, here's the thing. Here's my thoughts on the Confederate flag. I think there's something deeper that's going on here beyond just eliminating a symbol of racism. I mean, it's gotten so bad that they're talking about, somebody wrote in the New York Post, Lou Lemnick, wrote about how they should ban Gone with the Wind because it's racist. Here's my thoughts on it. It's not, racism is just a surface issue. What it's really about, things are about to get absolutely horrific in this country. What is coming down the pike is going to be so bad, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be so bad that there will be open talk of secession in state houses across the country. And in order to have that dialogue of secession, what's the natural thing for you to do when you're researching the topic? You're going to want to go back into history and research what the old Southern states did and what their argument was for breaking their bonds with the Union. Now, they're trying to get out ahead of this, and this is why they're banning the Confederate flag. They're trying to put this as the symbol of racism, so that any thought of this coming secession, any thought of anything that does not go along with the federal government is considered repugnant and considered racist. And the next thing that's going to happen, the next target, I guarantee you, if I'm right on my assumptions on this, if I'm right, the next target that they're going to go after is the Gadsden flag, the Don't Tread on Me sign.
Well,
Real quick, Frank,
you grew up about the same age as my daughter, and you had to have watched Dukes of Hazzard. They're going after the Dukes,
right?
The Duke boys.
Right. But this is about eliminating. It's about eliminating people's thoughts of forming their own independent government or resisting the tyranny that is coming. We're coming up on our final break. Stay tuned here. This is Frankly Speaking live on webcast1live.com. We'll be right back.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray, we're saved! Consumer Credit, you're our hero!
All right, thanks for joining us. The final segment here of Frankly Speaking Live here on webcast1live.com. I'm Dave Kanyuk, joined by Jason Rainwater.
That's Mike Nixon.
Mike Nixon and Frank Holtzhauser. If you want to give us a call, it's
Frank Rainwater.
244-0077. If you're outside of Des Moines, it's 515-244-0077. A lot of news coming out of the Vatican over the past couple of weeks. Pope Francis issued his long-awaited encyclical on global warming. He also said, before we get into that, he also said that gun manufacturers cannot be considered Christian. I don't know where he gets off on that.
Does the Vatican not own guns?
Apparently not.
Wait. You mean the Swiss Guard always just carries around those large staffs?
They actually invest in Beretta, which of course is a gun manufacturer, so it's pretty hypocritical on that front. Let's see.
I mean, he lives in the most peaceful country in the world.
The Pope's encyclical on the environment is being hailed for its embrace of science, although it is about as scientific as the Catholic hymnal. Pope Francis writes that Sister Earth now cries out because of the harm we have inflicted on her by our irresponsible use and abuse of the goods with which God has endowed her.
When did he become pagan to start with Sister Earth?
You know, it's actually funny that you mentioned that, because the other thing that I was going to bring up, they barred a scientist from being on his panel, his climate advisory board. They barred a guy whose argument was the sun has more to do with climate change than man-made reasons. They barred him from being on this council. However, very interestingly enough, the one of the people who advises Pope Francis is a pantheist, a scientific pantheist. Let's see here. Neither Pope Francis nor St. Francis. Hans Schollenhuber. He advocates what's called the Gaia Principle. The Gaia Principle, first advanced by chemist James Lovelock and microbiologist Lynn Margulis in the 1970s, says that all life interacts with the Earth, and the Earth with all life to form a giant self-regulating living system. So basically he's saying Earth is alive. This goes far beyond the fact that the Earth's climate system has feedbacks which are at the very center of the debate over climate change. In the Gaia Principle, Mother Earth is alive, and even, some think, aware in some ill-defined mystical way. The Earth knows man and his activities, and frankly, isn't too happy with them. This is what we might call scientific pantheism, a kind that appeals to atheistic scientists. It is an updated version of the pagan belief that the universe itself is God and the Earth is at least semi-divine, a real brother, sun, and sister water. Let's see. What's this have to do with Schollenhuber? In the 1999 Nature paper, Earth System Analysis, and the Second Copernican Revolution, he said, ecosphere science is therefore coming of age, lending respectability to its romantic companion, Gaia theory, as pioneered by Lovelock and Margulis. This hotly debated geophysiological approach to Earth system analysis argues that the biosphere contributes in an almost cognizant way to self-regulating feedback mechanisms that have kept the Earth's surface environment stable and habitable for life. He elaborated that although effects such as glaciations may still be interpreted as overreactions to small disturbances, a kind of cathartic geophysiological fever, the main events resulting in an accelerated maturation by shock treatment indicate that Gaia faces a powerful antagonist. So basically he's saying that the conditions of the Earth are basically, the Earth is sick, it has a fever.
So is this a distraction from the audit of the Vatican Bank, where they were talking that, they was going to uncover the mafia's money laundering scheme for drugs, and the mafia was quoted as saying they're not beyond offing a pope?
Going Well, honestly, it's to me to have the religious figure of the largest religion on the planet try to tell me that the Earth is alive, that I'm already a virus that's taking form to destroy everything that it is. It's where are we going?
How can he be called the vicar of Christ, which I don't buy that the Pope is, but how is he supposed to be a religious figure preaching the gospel of Christ when he's putting a living Earth as a god? Well, doesn't that contradict itself at all?
If he's the vicar, why don't he just fix the place?
Exactly. But seriously, how is it that nobody's really questioning this?
And what's strange is even if the sun is the largest cause of climate change, there's no empirical evidence. There's been climate change caused by us or in the near future. I keep hearing these reports that we're 100 years away, 50 years away, we're 20 years away from the next cataclysmic event. I go,
just like 7 years ago, Al Gore and people like that were going around saying that there were not going to be any ice caps by 2015. There were reports, I think, in the New York Times that want to say that, snow and winter are going to be a thing of the past by 2015.
But when both of you guys were young, scientists were telling me at the time that the Earth was going to go into a deep freeze.
Yeah, global cooling. Exactly. And there was no empirical evidence to global cooling in any manner, so they changed the story. It became global warming.
And then when there was no empirical evidence of global warming, it's just been changed to climate change.
And now climate's
always changing.
Yes. Well, even with climate change, they can't prove that hot button word, so they change it to climate effects. There are things that happen that affects the climate. Well, obviously.
It's weather extremes now.
Weather extremes.
Yes.
The whole point of it is that it's going to result in international carbon taxes as a form of redistribution of wealth. And that's what it boils down to.
When the first thing that people in the Air Force, the Army, Navy, Marines, being a former Air Force veteran myself, to learn that the greatest enemy to America right now is climate change.
Yeah,
and you're
that's
going to
what they're
combat
teaching the military.
climate change. I go, oh, yeah, thanks for really putting forth the effort to protect America and our sovereignty. It has to be climate change is the biggest thing. I so look forward to the greenhouse effect, attacking Oklahoma City anytime soon right now.
So what you're saying is it's another way to extort money off Americans.
Right, that's what it is. And it's going to be used to fund
climate tax.
Exactly, and they need that to fund international government.
It's as foolish as recycling programs because recycling does not save the American taxpayer any money. It actually triples cost towards taxpayers. The only thing that you should recycle is aluminum cans because that's the only resource that you can use over and over and over and over again because you can use it for less and lesser purposes. It takes too much energy to recycle. And that's the whole reason why we have dumps and landfills and whatnot, because you can use all that to replenish soil production.
You guys are baseball fans, right?
Sure.
Minneapolis baseball park, I don't know what they call it now. Target Field is supposedly its energy comes from an underground
hamster.
Pardon?
Hamster on a hamster wheel.
Yeah. No, but it's they burn trash. They burn garbage, and they've got filters underground.
Awesome. That's awesome.
They've got filters underground that the smoke that comes off the smokestack is odorless. So all that's trapped under the ground. So why not, instead of recycling trash, just do what they do up there and burn it, incinerate it?
That's what garbage and whatnot in landfills do, is it creates a natural gas, and people are always afraid, these gases and these toxic fumes that come from landfills. I go, they're not toxic. Once you trap natural gas, which in California, the one thing that they do correctly is to use these type of landfills and use that as a natural gas line, and they will build natural gas lines out into communities, and that's how you keep your homes warm, power all of your electricity. I go, that was what the whole point of a landfill was. It wasn't just a pile of trash, and they always show you these pictures of like, oh, look what's happening, the damaging of the atmosphere.
But that uses common sense, and this whole global warming thing is
not common sense.
It's not common sense. Exactly. It's not about common sense at all. It's about leveraging more taxes and redistributing.
Control.
Exactly. It is about control. The TPP, it's all about control. And this TPP thing, getting back to what we were originally talking about, This, I think, is like the 10 kingdoms that's talked about in Revelations.
The 10 toes that Europe won't cleave together again before Christ comes.
It's the 10-headed beast, basically, the economic union. So you're going to have a representative from each of the interlocking unions, and then you're going to have them vote one person as the head of that union. And that one person, that's going to be it. That's going to be Antichrist. And they're going to give their power unto the beast for 1 hour. I just feel like the clock is really ticking down on everything. I think come October, I think that this country is going to be entirely different. And I don't know. I'm at a loss for words. I'm quite frankly...
Well, it has to happen. I mean, these things has to come to pass before Christ's coming. So
it does have to happen.
The persecution is on.
It is on. It is on. And it's time for Christians. There's no political solution left. It's time for Christians to prepare. It's time for you to gather your guns, your gold, and your grains. And it's time to come up with a self-defense plan, basically. Anyway, that's all the time that we have. This is Frankly Speaking Live. Join us next week here at 5:30. And I'm Dave Kanyuk, joined by Jason Rainwater and Frank Holzhauser. We'll see you next week. Coming up here in about 30 minutes, Faith That Works with Wayne Carter. You're not going to want to miss that. We'll see you next week.